Hey, what is up, guys? Welcome to Minds Behind the Music. I'm your host, LA. Here with me is my co-host and my fellow bandmate, Mason.
Hello. Good to be
Today,
here.
yep. So today we are back with another album review, and this one is, like a kind of two really popular musicians from like the era that I grew up with. They got together, they formed a new group, and they released an album, and this was the album. The album that I am talking about in particular is An Evening with Silk Sonic, the Bruno Mars and Anderson .Paak album. And I definitely have a lot to say about this album. There's so much, but before I say anything, is there anything that you want to say about this album, Mason?
Okay. I don't know that I've heard like anything written, I think this good in a while. I mean, just generally, for lack of better words to describe it. I don't think that I've heard something composed. Composed might be a better word. Um like this in a long time. If ever, really. I mean, it's very funk. Oh my god. And
Yeah,
R&B. And I
it's
don't
like,
you just don't really see that in like minuscule examples in pop music, but not like this. This is I don't even really want to call it like it's a taking elements
mhm.
from the funk movement, because it feels like something completely different. It feels like it's lifting from old funk while not really doing that, you know?
Yeah, I know what you mean. And I think that to go off from what you were saying about like this feels like real funk, this a lot of people will argue and say like what artists, like what pop artists are bringing back funk. Some say it's Charlie Puth, some other people say it was the Jonas Brothers with Sucker, but
Oh
I
no.
yeah, I have to disagree with that too. But this album is definitely like pure, like real, unadulterated in the pocket funk. Like there's not even just funk. There's R&B, there's soul. It's like I think this album is definitely worth listening to. It's I was very, very impressed with it because we were first introduced to it by a couple singles. The first one was "Leave the Door Open," like you guys know that I'm gonna leave the door open. Like we were first introduced with that song, like which I believe was the end of last year, the beginning of this year. I think it was
It
sometime
was the
this
beginning
year.
of this year.
Yeah, it was the beginning of this year, and it was like people didn't really know what to think of it because a lot of people know that Bruno Mars really likes that like 70s style because you hear bits and pieces of it in his solo music, like with a unorthodox jukebox. You heard it with Treasure, um, and you even heard it with a couple other songs I can't really think of off the top of my head. I know Treasure's one of them, but it's like little elements. I think with this album, it really like takes the entire genre and the entire sound of like the 70s and puts it into like multiple songs. Like how I describe this album is it has the sound of the 70s, like 70s R&B and soul, but with the production of today, which I think the way that they handled it, it blended very well. And is there anything that you want to say before I continue?
Yeah, actually. I think that production definitely, and it definitely lifted the genre as a whole, but there's still something that was like different about it, that I couldn't really shake. So I gave it another listen about an hour before we started, and it's the attitude of it.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's what's different. It's like at first listen, you can you can tell that it's not there's almost like this desire for, I feel like, for a lot of people to kind of get a specific sound, you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
they'll they'll go through anything that they can to make it sound like a certain time period or a certain style or a certain swagger. And I think, I genuinely think, I think what differentiates this album and why it feels fresh is because the attitude on it isn't
Yeah.
anything like how they were when this genre was popular in the 70s. Um, there was this almost kind of, you listen to like Parliament and you listen to
Mhm.
Funkadelic, and
Yeah.
you get this. It was almost like a covered up kind of, like you all know what we're talking about,
Yeah.
kind of
Like Bo-
thing.
like Bootsy Collins, who actually happens to be on the album too.
Yeah.
He narrates like the album, like you know how in Igor by Tyler the Creator, they always have that like that one voice that's like sometimes you gotta close a door to open a window, and like you hear that voice. That's Bootsy Collins happens to be on the album doing that kind of stuff.
Oh yeah.
And
Um, which I thought was like interesting because I was like, all right, yeah, you got to bridge the gap, you know. Um, but it's the attitude. They on this album are so much more open
mhm,
about what it was really all about. And that's how it is with pop songs today. I mean, they're very more, vocalized about the fact that it's about, you know, drugs and sex and, partying and all that. They were kind of like
yeah,
closeted about it in the 70s. And here they're very, like I said, I went back and listened to it, and the lyrics are very like, they're almost popish, like
yeah.
today's popish, but they fit it into a bunch of punk songs. The attitude is different, but I like it. It's not trying to hide itself.
Yeah, I definitely have to agree with that. And it's not even just like with this record, but this record is like a perfect example. Like with Leave the Door Open, it's like it's like you're just honest with those intentions. It's like, hey, I want to spend some time, I want to chill, maybe do a little more with that with you, girl. Like that kind of stuff. And what do you call it? Smoking out the window, I think it's what it's called. Yeah, smoking out the window,
Hmm.
where it's like, oh, this woman's getting me mad. She got me doing all this stupid stuff for her. And then like it's very much like the subject matter is like not even like metaphorical, it's there. And
Yeah.
another example for an album that I can bring, another album that has this similar style but not exactly like it has the similar formula with that like subject matter being blatantly there instead of being metaphorical, is Olivia Rodrigo's debut album. uh I haven't listened to too much of it. I know that, anyone who would see this and know more about the album could probably have more to explain about it. But like the song Driver's License, you could tell in the beginning of it, you could tell from listening to it, it's about a breakup. It's about like, a relationship she once had that she doesn't have anymore. And then she has like these like more punk rock sounding songs that are about, hey, like it's like a passive aggressive message, like, hey, like, oh, you're with someone else. I'm sad. I'm mad. It's like those kinds of things that are like, it blends other genres that, have been done and uh that have already been like handled before, but mixing it with the styles of today, which I honestly hope to see more of, because I feel like I've been realizing this lately too with a lot of other, a lot of the music of today, like the end of the 2010s going into the 2020s, going into this new decade that we're in. We're starting to bring back some of that old sound from like the 70s, 80s, and 90s, and bringing it to now, seeing how we can blend, the style of music that, you'd hear in a pop song, that you'd like a regular Billboard song or like Spotify's top 10. You'd hear like a subject matter or like, a singing style, but with maybe like a more jazz, more like soul sound, or more like a punk rock sound, or like a blues style, like blues rock style song. Like I'm starting to see more of that, like more of like taking stuff from like the older generations, taking that songwriting style and also blending it, with the things that make pop music today so significant. I'm I'd like to see more of that, and I can see that, there's kind of like a, a movement, like an uprising or like a movement of said genre. Like, we're bringing back, with this album, we're bringing back 70s soul, funk, R&B in different ways, but it's like it has like the pop sound, like you said. It's not hiding itself. It's pretty honest with its intentions. It's like blunt, and it's there's nothing really metaphorical about it, which isn't a bad thing. a lot of people would rather their songs be metaphorical, tell a story in such a clever way. But this album in general doesn't really try to tell a story. It just more so tries to, focus on the sound of the music while also, keeping the attitude of like, pop music you hear today.
Uh, so I think that I think your point about reaching back and taking older styles, I mean, that's something you're starting to see a lot more of.
Mhm.
And I think it's a cool thing because you think about it and think about all the iterations that jazz went through. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like like you listen to jazz that was composed in the early 20th century, and it's nothing like Bitches Brew. You know what I mean? Like it's just it
Yeah.
went through so many iterations and styles and ways of presenting it and attitude as well. Um, and then, I mean, it's no secret that the music that you and I like is pretty far outdated in terms of popular culture now.
Yeah.
Um, but it's I don't think it should be left at the door,
Mhm.
because it's I think you should leave the door open
Yeah.
because then
You beat me to
be,
saying it. I didn't want to stop your or stop what you were saying.
uh well, no, seriously, it it you got to draw from so many places, and I think it's just it's where it's going to go next. You're going to see these pop musicians. I think this album is a wonderful example of it, and there's probably going to be more, and there probably already has been a lot that I'm not,
Mhm.
aware of, that have taken this style and turned it into something more, whether it be by sound, by production, or by attitude, that will make it something greater than whatever great was 40 years ago. You know,
Yeah.
it um and uh that being said, uh it's it's wonderful to kind of see that uh that new attitude, well, that new attitude, basically. uh it it doesn't have anything to hide. It's in
Mhm.
line lyrically and in attitude with current day pop. And seeing that on a funk album is cool as hell.
Yeah.
Um, and it's just kind of genuinely itself. So,
Yeah, I completely agree with that. And I think that with when and to get into the songs now, when I first heard Leave the Door Open, which is, it's the album's second song because they have like an intro song, like how some albums have like, the intro's like, yeah, this is the album. It'll be like a 1 minute intro. That's what it has. It starts with Silk Sonic intro and then starts with Leave the Door Open, which was the debut single of the album. When I first heard Leave the Door Open, I was like, not as engaged by it as much. Like I was like, I'm a little skeptical about it because I didn't take time to listen to it. But then I took time to listen to it. I was listening to it more than once, and I'm like, I'm really feeling this. And I know it's probably not surprising to a lot of people who really know me, who know that I like this kind of music, who like that that 70s sound, that 70s soul sound. But it's not even like that. It's like Leave the Door Open, like what we were saying before. It has that 70s like Philly soul sound along with, something you'd hear in like a Stevie Wonder song from 1970. But it has that signature flair that Bruno Mars is known for, and Anderson .Paak, which again, I'll admit I've never really listened to much Anderson .Paak. And but it does it with such like a style that I've never heard from any artist really, even Bruno Mars himself. Which again, I while I'm not the biggest fan of Bruno Mars, I respect him as an artist. He's a very talented singer, very talented performer, and even a very 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 unique songwriter. And I think that with I think that with this album, it really showcased what he's capable of, and it showcased what Anderson .Paak is also capable of. Because I don't know, again, I don't know much about Anderson .Paak. All I know is that he's a rapper, and I think the two of them together have like a chemistry that is really unspoken. Like, I think no other single could have defined what this sound was better than Leave the Door Open, because like I said, I first wasn't engaged by it, but the more I listened to it, I'm like, if this is really like, commercially, as if this is really like how music of the 2020s is going to be like in regards to commercial success, I'm looking forward to it. And like you said, like it's it's as poppy as it needs to be, but also like complementing the styles of 70s of the music of that generation, even music of other generations. Like it makes you it, to me, as a person who really like, who also grew up on, the 60s and 70s soul music, because my family grew up on that. My family listened to that all the time. It's it I found this to be a big compliment.
Um, yeah. So I don't know much about Anderson .Paak either. Um, if I'm being completely honest,
Mhm.
and I mean, I never before this, I didn't know who he was.
Mhm.
Um, that being said, I remember Bruno Mars as a kid. I remember listening to him. I think I was in middle school at the time. Um, and yeah, I remember him having a lot of successful hits. And since being a kid and trying to, or now having been a kid then, since then, I
Mhm.
have, I've listened to some of his stuff, and I've seen videos of him with a band, and him playing guitar. And I always respected that, and I always thought that it was, cool that he had this funk sound and a lot of his pop songs that I don't think really at the time you saw. I mean, this was 10 years ago, 10, 12 years ago, that you never I don't ever recall hearing in any other pop music really. Um, so I think he also as well is unapologetically him, and I always thought he was cool.
Yeah.
And then when this album came out, I was even surprised. Like, I didn't listen to it at first. All my buddies were like, "Yeah, like you got to listen to it." Like, I listened to it last night. It dropped. I listened to it immediately. It's awesome. You got to listen. So of course I did, and but even then, having that like um pre already like pre thought out bias about Bruno Mars, I was still skeptical about going into it because of the way that they were describing it. My friends, I mean. They were
Mhm.
like, yeah, it's like it pays homage, it does that whole funk thing. I mean, hell, they have Bootsy Collins on it.
Yeah.
And but when I first heard that, I was like, oh crap, like this is
Mhm.
probably gonna be distasteful. No, Leave the Door Open, second it came on, I knew I was hooked.
Yeah.
Um uh I think my favorite track on the album is Fly Is Me, just being honest. That
Yeah.
song
That
slaps.
I have to agree with that. Um, well, yeah, my we can even start talking about the highlights of this album, the favorite songs. Like fly
Oh
as
yes,
me
please.
fly as me is, oh my god, it's everything about that song is like, it's like it tries to be like, it's like yeah, I'm a cool cat, yeah, every girl's lucky to be with me. It's that kind of song, but it's like it's so catchy, it's so like funky, like everything about, you can't help but enjoy it. And even the other songs, even the song after that, like After Last Night, the one with Thundercat, which again, if a lot of people who know me know that I love Thundercat, like I love
Mhm.
everything he puts out. And he's don't even get me started on his bass playing. He's like,
You got me hooked on him. I absolutely adore Thundercat now.
yeah, like I love everything about Thundercat. And but After Last Night, I love the bass tone on it, and I just love the whole atmosphere of each song. It's like you feel the emotion of each song. It's like you could tell when a song's trying to be happy, when it's trying to be mad, when it's trying to be sad. And Another favorite of mine would be Put on a Smile. It's like a ballad. This song really, really showcases Anderson .Paak singing, because like I said before, like I never knew much about Anderson .Paak. I knew that only thing I knew about him was that he was a rapper, but oh my god, this song, Put on a Smile, this shows off both not just Bruno Mars as a singer, because Bruno Mars, we already know he's like unbelievably skilled as a singer, but Anderson .Paak, his voice on this particular song is like mind blowing. Like this one is like a ballad, and I believe in a minor key, but like the sound of this ballad is just on the same level as All in Love is Fair by Stevie Wonder. If you guys have never heard that song, I would highly recommend you hear that. It's a beautiful ballad that was from Inner Visions, and it has that like atmosphere. It's like, I'm sad, I want love, I lost love, or I'm in love with this person, and I love it when I see her smile. That's kind of the idea of the song Put on a Smile. And it's like, it's slow, but when you take your time and listen to it, and you could feel what they're singing as they're doing it. Like, you don't, with a lot of pop songs, it's just like they tend to be very formulaic, with, and I'm not saying all of them are like this, but a good portion of them that are like, you know, the ones that you'd expect, like some like Fifth Harmony or something like that, or Shawn Mendes, which, again, no offense to them, they're good artists on their own, but like it tends to be like predictable and formulaic. You hear a song that's like, oh, it's like, I love this girl, oh, this guy's not treating her right, or this this woman is not treating this man right, I'm in love with this man, like vice versa, all that kind of stuff. Like, you hear it and it's kind of predictable, but when you hear these songs, like this particular song Put on a Smile, it's just like, wow, like it's like it takes you back to the 70s, but not actually being in the 70s. Like, it's, and this is again me not, I don't want to sound like a boomer saying this, but it takes you back to that like feel that, like, it's like something you'd hear in an Al Green song. It's like you can feel every single like emotion that goes on in like each section of the song. When it gets louder, when it gets quiet, like you just feel that in your body. It's like it's like like you get goosebumps rather. And
I
it's
wonder if they recorded this with a click, you
I
know?
that is a good question. I
And feel like I feel like there's something lacking in terms of emotion for not, I wouldn't say all of the Billboard 100.
mhm,
Um, I would say in any of that, like any pop song that kind of fulfills that formulaic value, there's
mhm.
something that lacks in emotion sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes.
Yeah, that
So I wonder, and everything that you hear on the top 100 is probably recorded to a click.
mhm.
So I wonder if that has any effect. You know what I mean? So I wonder if this album is recorded to a click. It's way too deep of a question to be talking about here, but I just
Mhm.
wonder if it was, and if it wasn't, does the free felt tempo have something to do with, how intimate a song may or may not be?
Mm. Well, you know what? That piqued my interest. I'm gonna look it up. I wonder if it did. Like, I don't. So far, it's not showing me like anything in regards to that. So who knows? Um,
You know,
if anyone wants to see the tracks or the songs specifically on the album, I could even show that to them, which is right here. Which it's this right here. Silk Sonic intro, Leave the Door Open, Fly As Me. Anyone who wants to see anyone who wants to see the tracks, they're right there. Skate is a pretty good song. That reminds me of the, it's supposed to be like those disco song, like those like disco songs that you hear, in a roller rink in the 70s, which I think
yeah,
it handles that very well. It's another perfect example of, what this album sounds like, which is, you know, mixing the pop lyrics with the 70s soul sound. And I have to, which what you were saying was basically the point that I was trying to bring across. It's like a lot of the pop songs from, our beloved artists nowadays, or the ones that, people expect to hear. It's, yeah, it is lacking a certain emotion. And I don't think I was really missing that with this album. With this album, you know what you're getting into, you know what each song is about, and you know what it's supposed to sound like. But like, all these all of these things meeting the expectations or meeting your expectations, I don't think they really phase the quality of the album. I think it makes me enjoy this album even more.
Hmm. Uh, Speaking of a specific song, Blast Off, I really enjoyed Blast Off, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna tell you why uh, I think it has a little bit of significance to it, as in terms of like paying some sort of homage,
Mm-hmm.
is that uh, you really think about what kind of like what band defined funk in the 70s, uh,
Yeah.
and it's probably you're fighting between a couple people, but I'm gonna have to go ahead and say probably Parliament Funkadelic, and you're thinking about it,
Mm-hmm.
and they had a lot of songs that had to do with like almost kind of like pseudo psychedelic, but it it was almost kind of like more mythically inclined, talking about space. Like like you had like Pink Floyd who were talking
Mm-hmm.
about space, but it was more um it was different. It was kind of like peace oriented. Whereas
Yeah.
you had a band like Parliament Funkadelic, sorry, um Parliament Funkadelic, uh doing this whole kind of like space shtick.
Yeah.
But it was more mysterious. It was more astral, if you will. It was more mythical. Um, I don't know why they chose that to be part of their shtick, but they did. And I think Blast Off is another perfect song, which you listen to it and the ending is really kind of weird, but
Yeah.
um I think it's beautiful in a way because it is, and I wouldn't even say it's ripping anything off. It's just
It's not.
100% paying homage to the fact that this band, which literally, I mean, come on, Bootsy is on the album for, Christ's
Mm-hmm.
sake. Um, it's paying homage to that little niche that they had. And I think little things like that is so cool. And it's another thing, it's like an Easter egg. And I don't know if they did that intentionally, but I mean, come on. Um, and it's little details like that that I really enjoy about this album. It really kind of ties it all together because they take the style as a whole, but they also manage to get little digs in there, little Easter eggs, and I just think that's cool, you know.
Yeah. One thing I really liked about the that blast about blast off, like the closing song, is that like right at the end he's like, oh, like Bruno Mars like doesn't even try to hide it. Is like he's like, we're gonna change the key, but he's like I want to see it pick a go higher, and it keeps changing the key. And I always thought that was such a fun part of the song, because it's like it knows what it sounds like.
Yeah,
It's very self aware, and I like that. And I think that's one thing that I start to admire about albums of today, is how self-aware each of them are, like how self-aware all these albums are. and and I think more albums that tend to do that end up being the most enjoyable. Like, I will go as early as To Pimp a Butterfly by Kendrick Lamar. It knows what it wants to sound like. It knows what each subject matter of every song off that album is trying to sound like. It has a recurring theme, because you hear at the end of certain songs from To Pimp a Butterfly where Kendrick's saying like, "I remember you was conflicted, misusing your influence." sometimes I do the same. Like he's just giving these short monologues. It gets longer and longer just so you could have the idea of what the album sounds like. Tyler the Creator, for example, he had that with Igor. And I think even on the song, even on his new album, Call Me If You Get Lost, uh, he doesn't try to hide what the album is about, which um if you guys haven't seen, I reviewed that album with my bandmate from Auburn Gray, Paul Machado. We were talking about Call Me If You Get Lost. It has a similar subject matter to An Evening with Silk Sonic, in which it says, talks about the high life, talks about, people in our lives, that, we want and don't want around. And it doesn't try to be metaphorical. It doesn't try to be mysterious. It's just blatantly and unapologetically itself. And honestly, that's what makes the album shine more. And like I said, like for example, like what you were saying before about the album not trying to sound like something, like it reminds me of, like, with bands like our band, Progress Avenue, and rock bands like Red Van Fleet, where people compare us to, like, oh, this sounds like a song from this other band, this sounds like a song from this band. Like with this album with Silk Sonic, I hear, like, the genre of music that it's trying to sound like, but I know, like, no particular artist comes to mind when I hear this album. Like there might be a few little things here and there that, could have that, like maybe the Gamble and Huff Philly soul sound, or maybe like something you'd hear in like a Stevie Wonder song, but not exactly. There wasn't really like an actual like artist song that I heard on this album that I could really fully compare it to. And I think that's one of the most unique things about this album. Like it has a sound of older artists from back in the day, but it's not it's not the actual sound of said artist. It's a completely fresh sound. It's something that, they did, and all you think about is really them. Sure, you think about other artists or other genres of music from the 70s, but you know that it's them and it's their sound. But what would you have to say about that, Mason?
Um, when I'm when you and I are putting together songs, I don't ever really think about it that way. I don't think about the fact that it may sound like this or it may sound like that person.
Yeah.
It's not really something that comes to mind personally.
Mhm.
Um, there are things that kind of come together later, and you're like, oh yeah, I can see some uh, influences there. And there have been a few times where it's like you definitely get ideas, you take inspiration from, but directly copying something isn't, they sincerest form of flattery. It's not for music. It's not good. And
Yeah.
I again, that's not something that I personally think about. Um, and as far as this album, I think it very easily could have gone distastefully. Um, I think it very easily could have been so that it felt like a more blatant ripoff, other than the tasteful album that is is what it is. That is unapologetically itself and pays homage and takes a certain style, and all that. It very easily could have gone the other way, I feel like. Because I feel like there have definitely been attempts at stuff like this, that are just totally in vain,
Mhm.
or totally um out of the like out of the realm of how music should progress. Um, but it managed to do it tastefully
Yeah.
without really directly ripping anybody off. Um, and like I said, it very easily could have gone another way. um, because I feel like a lot of the projects that try to pay homage like this are usually out of vanity and
Mhm.
like a self-fulfilling sort of thing. Um, maybe uh, instead of being the progressive thing that it really is, where an album like this is taking inspiration as well as moving it forward into something that could, you know, fit the palette of today.
Yeah. Yeah, I know what I get what you mean. I see what you mean with this album. Like, it pays homage to the older artists from, from the 70s and 80s, but it doesn't, it doesn't you can't really compare it to like another specific artist, cuz like when you hear, when, like you said, when you hear other artists like try to pay homage to, a certain sound or artist, it becomes blatant and it's not as tasteful as you'd expect, as you'd want it to be. And that could really break break the sound, or make or break the sound. I think in this part it really makes the sound. With, like I said before, with the rock bands entirely, like, it's more a subconscious thing where they end up sounding like a specific artist. Like, for example, the Arctic Monkeys, I could hear Alex Turner's voice and I'm like, you know what, with Alex Turner, when I hear him sing certain songs, I could hear David Bowie. Like, I hear Alex Turner, but I also hear David Bowie. Like, that's not necessarily a coincidence. Is not Am I saying it's a bad thing? No, not necessarily, but when something is, when something is, sounding similar, like, subconsciously, sometimes it can work and other times it can't. In this case, this doesn't sound like any specific artist that I can name. And that's honestly what I love about it even more. Am I saying I don't like a lot of the artists that sound similar to, like, am I saying I don't like current certain artists that sound similar to, artists that influence them? No, but I I can definitely see what you mean. Like, a lot of like songs that are, like we said before, that are taken, or, made to pay homage to a certain artist or a certain sound, ends up not working out well. And I have to commend Bruno Mars and Anderson .Paak for this, the new group Silk Sonic, because, this was a strong start to this group's discography, because I'm really looking forward to, what they're going to come up with next. And seeing like the personnel, apparently Anderson .Paak played the drums for this album, and I didn't know about that until, after I listened to it, and I'm like, this is impressive. Because, and I was curious as well, because I saw some of the music videos, like the music video for Leave the Door Open. He played the drums for that, and I thought that was, just for display and just for the music video. He actually played the drums for that song, and that really tells me, it's like, these guys are talented. This is like, something that, this is like a new sound that I really hope, like, people on the Billboard learn to appreciate, and people, that just love popular music in general would learn to appreciate as well. Because this again pays homage to the artists of the 70s, and it also mix, the pop sounds that a lot of people of our generation really enjoy. Because it's really, when it comes to popular music, it's really become such a broad spectrum of genres. We got people that love, the regular pop music, the singer-songwriter pop music, like Ed Sheeran, Shawn Mendes, Taylor Swift, Camila Cabello, Olivia Rodrigo. The list goes on. And then there's people that like rap and trap music, like, 21 Savage, um, Playboy Cardi, I had DaBaby, um, the list could go on with that. Post Malone. There's so many rap artists nowadays, it's hard to keep track. And then there's, the people that, still listen to rock music, or still that like and even in between, within those genres of music, there's a broad spectrum with that, because there's trap, there's still, regular rap and hip hop that people like listening to, that were they find certain artists like Joey Badass. He's not a mumble rapper, and people really like him. He's, he's bringing old styles from the 90s and mixing them with, modern rap sounds today, which again, and then there's Black, or some people know him as Six Lack, who does the same thing. And there's the trap artists that, there's people that use trap beats that they're singing rappers too. And, people are into that. There's like, we had Juice World, may he rest in peace. Um, and then there's like within pop music, some people might not like Ed Sheeran or Taylor Swift, but they'll like Harry Styles. And some people might not like, Machine Gun Kelly, and they might like, say, say uh, Olivia Rodrigo. It's all a matter of preference, and I think with this album, it tends to be like really pleasing to a lot of like, the really art pop listeners, and the, people, the older generation like Gen X and boomers, and all that. It's really pleasing to them. I know that, from what my mom really likes Bruno Mars. She really likes his music. I like a couple of his songs. I know Talking to the Moon is now popular because of TikTok. But I mean, that song was popular when I was in middle school, because that was when Bruno Mars's debut album came out. I was in seventh or eighth grade. I don't exactly remember. I was either in seventh grade or eighth grade when Bruno Mars's debut album came out. And I remember my mom always showing me, she was like, "Hey, I like this Bruno Mars song. This is a good Bruno Mars song." And sometimes she would even suggest that I cover them because they sound really good. And she likes these songs, and she wants to hear my rendition of these songs because she enjoyed them. And I think that Bruno Mars knows how to blend the modern sound with, the sound that a lot of older generations enjoy, which is, I think, is a pretty difficult task, because you really have to take to account what are people listening to nowadays? What is the main demographic? Sometimes you could even just pick a genre and be like, okay, what do these guys like? Let's try to make something that they like, but let's try to, use something that we also enjoy and blend it together. And a lot of that is, needs to be taken into consideration, which like I said, it's a big challenge and it's hard to do because you don't know what you're getting into with that. But I think Bruno Mars and Anderson .Paak, aka Silk Sonic, did it, and they did it well. Like, I would not have asked for a better album for this. It's bold, it's it's blatant, it's like blunt, like the lyrics are straightforward. There's nothing. I mean, there's a couple metaphorical changes, like he mentions a Rolls Royce. Like sometimes he mentions like, like, oh, this is a type of like this. Oh, I got like a Rolex on my wrist. Like they'll make little hints here and there about, like nice luxury items, kind of like a rapper would. And that's still, that's still metaphorical, but it's, what it's about. And when you like take the time to listen to it, like you'll know like what they're all about. And I so far I'm really enjoying that. I'm really enjoying what they're doing. And it's, again, like I said, it feels fresh. It doesn't feel like, oh, we're trying to bring back the old sound. It doesn't feel like that. It feels like this is what we enjoy. We came up with this and we enjoy doing it. And I really hope to see what they have in store for us in the future. Maybe they'll start, the 80s sound. Maybe they'll stick with a 70s sound, but try different subject matters, try different, vocal styles, try different, different instrumentation. I'm really looking forward to that. But that's all I have to say about this. Is there anything else you'd like to say about this, Mason?
No, I mean, I think we covered the album pretty well. I mean, it is what it is, and I'm looking forward to whatever that they come out with next. If they do, I really hope that they do, because this was I'd rate this album very, very, very highly. Even I mean, just among generally all the stuff I listen to, period, I'd rate it pretty highly. Uh,
Mhm.
so yeah, it's a good album. Definitely give it a listen for anybody who's watching who hasn't given it a listen yet, because It like I said, it is unapologetically itself
Mhm.
and doesn't try to be anything other than what it is, and does a really good job at what it is. So, oh yeah,
I have to completely agree. For anyone who really wants to listen to the album, it's available on all streaming services. It's, just search An Evening with Silk Sonic or just search Silk Sonic. You'll find the album. We both highly recommend. I've already said my piece about this album. I have all I have to say to Anderson .Paak and Bruno Mars and to the rest of Silk Sonic, the other musicians supporting the group and that are in the group. Bravo to you guys. I'm really looking forward to whatever work you have next. And speaking of new stuff that is also available on all streaming services or at least Spotify and Apple Music, don't forget to check out my band's debut EP, Eternal Spring. It's by Auburn Gray. I will link it in the description. If need be, I'll link the fan link into the description. It is called Eternal Spring. It is a 4-song EP, and it is it was mixed by the guitarist of my other band, Paul Machado, who you've seen on the podcast before. Shout out to you. But that is available on Spotify, Apple Music, and I that's pretty much all I have to say for now,
it
guys.
is a very good EP. Check it out.
I appreciate that, Mason. I hope you guys like, comment, share, and subscribe. And I hope you guys had a really good Thanksgiving and Black Friday. I hope you guys got, some new stuff that you're satisfied with. And I hope you guys had some good turkey, some good food, all that other stuff, because this will probably be uploaded after Thanksgiving and after that holiday weekend. And that's all I have to say for now, guys. Take care. And as always, stay tuned.